new bill and a section of the new farm, the dairy section of the new farm bill. Now, let's remind ourselves a little bit about that farm bill. You remember the farm bill was just signed this past February at Michigan State University by the president. He signed the farm bill, but it had been delayed. There had been a lag between when the old farm bill had expired and then was extended and expired, and there had been a lag, and so Congress had an opportunity. Congress had an opportunity that took a lot of hard work that was led by Senator Debbie Stabenow, the chair of the Senate Ag Committee, to not just tinker with the dairy section, but to rewrite the dairy section. And she did that with a lot of input, and a lot of input from U.S. dairy leaders, but a lot of input from Ken Nobis here in Michigan, really helped to form what we have now as a dairy section of the Farm Bill. And that's what we're talking about. It's different than what we've had before, and it's new, and that's what we want to share with you, what is new here. So if we can look at 3 columns and say the Farm Bill, the new Farm Bill did some things. Here's a couple good seats up here. And then the new Farm Bill did some things, it did away with some things, it extended some things, and it created some new things. And so what it did is it did away with the milk income loss contract, the MILC payments. So the MILC payments are a thing of the past. That's ended. The Dairy Price Support Program, well, we're going to see that's still in an extended mode. And then the Dairy Export Incentive Program also ended. So the new Farm Bill did away with some things. It extended the Dairy Forward Pricing Program. It also kept in this permanent legislation, because there's permanent legislation in there that goes back to 1948 or 9, I don't remember which, 1948 or 9, that creates actually a price support for dairy. Right? That's permanent legislation. And what the Farm Bill does is modify that legislation. And then it extends the livestock gross margin for dairy. How many of you use the livestock gross margin for dairy, the LGM for dairy? Did anybody here use that program? Okay. We're not going to talk about that per se today, but it is still a program in operation. And we'll talk about that in relation to the Margin Protection Program, because this is a newly created program, the Margin Protection Program, and we often refer to it as MPP, okay? So the Margin Protection Program for dairy producers. Also, as a part of that, there's a dairy product donation, I should say a dairy product purchase and donation program, because the government will purchase product and then donate product if it needs to support price. And so if we've done away with the price support in some ways, the government has to have a means, and this was kind of a last-minute addition, to be able to support price in some way, and that is through purchase of product. This is a totally different purchase of product than what we had in the past. This is a purchase and donate right away, and purchase and donate to charities. Okay? And then there's the potential for a California federal order, which frankly has been there before. So let's talk about the Margin Protection Program, because the Margin Protection Program is what's of greatest interest to you. Now, since the 1930s, by the way, what happened in the 1930s? Some of you graybeards. Rod, what was going on in the 1930s?
My mother was in high school.
Your mother was in high school, that's right. Oh, come on, Mike, what was going on in the 1930s?
Well, I would think it would probably have something to do with the soup lines because of the Great Depression.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, that's what I'm thinking too. We had a Great Depression in this country in the 1930s. And since that time, and I don't know, I didn't look up the history to see what was the relation to timing on this. But since the time of the Great Depression, the government has said, we've got to keep dairy farmers in business. We've got to have milk for our people. We've got to have dairy products for the citizens of this country. So there's been a commitment to support dairy farm income since then. But since 1949, there's been this Dairy Price Support Program. We're going to look at that just a minute. And then, of course, the Milk Income Loss Contract was for 14 years, 2000 to 2014. Now, the problem is the Dairy Price Support Program really had become retroactive since 1989. Exists, you can't touch it. That is, there's this permanent legislation. Hi, Bob. There's still good seats available. And the MILC program, although it was much appreciated by small farms, was largely irrelevant to large farms. Why was that? Why was the MILC program basically a friend of small farms and not so important to large farms?
Cap.
I'm sorry.
Cap on production.
Cap on, a cap on the amount of payments it would make to you, okay? So it was capped so that smaller farms were the beneficiary of that. That's because it came out of New England. And it came out of New England to support New England-sized farms. Oh, that doesn't do it. So here's some history. This is from 1970 to about present. And this is the all milk price in the green and the support price. And you can see that there's quite a difference here between the support price and what the price is. So there's a difference of, well, it's $5, $6, $7 from support price to where prices are. Okay? So the support price has become, in many ways, irrelevant. It's just not functioning to do anything. But I want you to also remember that when you look at this price, you see a lot of variability here. Now, I know that you haven't forgotten variability. Right now, we're in a period of price stability. But variability is the history of milk pricing, and it will continue to be the history of milk pricing, and the new programs don't change that. Variability is a part of what we're going to deal with. If you talk about those MILC payments, here's a history of payments being made in MILC. So from December 1 to December 2013, you can see that there's times when there have been payments made up to, well, there's $1.75, there's $2. That was in 2009. Oh, you remember 2009, right? Glad that it's gone. But then 2012, 2013, there was MILC payments made. Was that because of low price? No, that was because of high feed price. So there was this component of feed price in that, right? And that was definitely an issue of high feed price there. The margin protection program is voluntary. You don't have to do a thing. That's up to you. You can elect not to do it. You can elect to do it. It's voluntary, right? And it's a margin. It's a margin between a milk price and a feed cost, okay? And so it's based on the U.S. Milk price, and it's an income over feed cost margin, if you want to look at it that way. So it's that difference between milk and feed costs. We're going to look at the exact formula for that. We're going to talk about how that works. We're going to work with an example on that. So it makes payments. So let's say you use that program to protect a margin, certain margin, and we'll get more into that. To protect a certain margin, it'll make payments when the average difference between that all U.S. milk price and the National Feed Ration Index falls below the coverage option that you select, or the margin that you select. So when we'll get into examples, but you'll select a margin. If that margin, if the actual margin is less than the margin you select, then it'll make a payment to make up for the difference in those margins. And what it does is protects producers from severe downturns in milk price or rising feed prices, or both. It's really catastrophic coverage, if you will. Okay? We know about catastrophic coverage. You've got insurance coverage on things. Hi, Larry, Jeremy, Paul. There's good seats available. They're just not all together. There's two up here, though, that are right next to each other. And you get to hear me really well up here, so join us. And there are no production or payment limitations. So you can see that the larger farms, particularly the Western farms, were really interested in this program and saying, okay, yeah, we can buy into that. We can go along with that program because there's no production or payment limitations there. Right? That was pretty important in order to get this agreed to by everybody. Now, eligibility certainly is an issue, right? So you're here. I know you. I know those of you who have herds, right? You had commercial marketings or sales of milk in the U.S., right? I look at you. I'm pretty sure that most of you are U.S. citizens. There's some of you I have some questions about, Jason particularly. But, you know, your citizenship, you're actively involved in the dairy farm business. You must comply with the conservation requirements. But if you qualified under MILC, then you qualify. Okay? So that's really the bottom line, is if you were getting MILC payments, then you qualify for this. It's not a question now, oh, do we need to go back and prove something that I didn't have to prove before? You're qualified if you qualify under MILC. And there's 4 key elements. This margin business. And we're going to discuss that. What is the margin? How is that margin calculated? Right? Your production history, a coverage production history, that is how much of that of that, how much of your production you choose to have covered in this program, and then the coverage level or the margin that you want to protect. Those are the key elements of this. So let's go down and look at those. First of all, here's the margin itself, right? This is a national formula. There is one formula for the U.S. No matter if you're in California or Michigan or Texas or Pennsylvania, there's one formula, right? And it's going to start with the U.S. all milk price. And so it takes the all milk price for the U.S., and then it's going to subtract these feed prices. So a corn price, soybean meal price, a hay price. And it's going to use a particular ration that they made up. Right? So it establishes there what the formula is that they're going to calculate this formula on. It doesn't matter if you don't feed soybean meal. That doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter if you can get soybean meal at a lower cost. That doesn't matter. This is a formula that's a standardized formula for the U.S. Right? It doesn't matter if you get premiums. It doesn't matter if you get a 13th check. Right? They're using an all milk price. So those things are irrelevant to calculating the margin. Here's an example if we look back for 2014. Because what it's going to do is it says the all milk price minus the feed cost, right? That's the margin. Milk price minus feed cost equals margin. By the way, what's in that margin? Is that profit margin? Shake your head no, because that's not profit margin. The margin between milk price and feed cost is the margin that's left to pay everything else. Like what? Well, like servicing loan debt, like paying for labor, like veterinary supplies, like other kinds of supplies, like fuel, like utilities, like all those things, plus profit, sure. But that margin between income and feed cost has to cover all those things. That's what you have to think about is, what is that cost to you? Because for one farmer, it's going to be different than for another farmer. One person may have a higher debt service per hundredweight than another producer has. And you have to think of it that way. Is debt service per hundredweight? What is our cost on a hundredweight basis? Because margin is on a hundredweight basis. Okay? So it's really important that when you think about that margin, we're not just thinking, oh, that's profit. Well, I wish it were all profit. But there's a lot of costs that need to come out of there. The other thing to remember is that the margin is calculated in couplets of months. January, February, March, April, May, June. This is testing my calendar skills. I'm not sure I can actually go any farther and get these right. All right? And it's always the same couplet. It's always January, February. It's not February, March ever. It's January, February, March, April. Okay? And so what we've done here is gone back in time to this year. The all milk price for January of 2014 was $23.50. February was $24.90. Okay? Here's the prices as determined by that formula during that time, and a feed cost as determined by the amounts in that ration. If you take $23.50 minus $10.71, you get the milk feed margin, right? For January. You do the same thing for February, you get the milk feed margin for February. Are you with me here? Milk cost minus feed cost equals the margin, and then those two are added and averaged. So add them together and divide by 2, and that margin was $13.31 for those 2 months. Right? Everything is looked at in 2-month couplets of margin. It's calculated individually on the month, but then they're added together and averaged. So there's the margin for January, February 2014. There's the margin for March, April 2014, $13.87. And down here on the bottom, May, June was $12.07. Now, by the way, I noticed one thing. We lost $1.70 margin from the second couplet, our spring months, to our late spring months. We lost $1.70 margin, and we didn't lose it. Well, we lost some milk price, and we gained some feed cost. Right? That's interesting to look at. Right? That's a reality that we're dealing with. Mike, was that a question?
Yeah, the old rule of thumb that feed cost was half the cost to produce the milk. Even if you had a $25 milk price, you still lost money. It's kind of interesting.
Right. And feed cost certainly varies by farm, but this is not your actual feed cost. This is the feed cost according to the formula, all right? You should do what you can to reduce your feed cost. You shouldn't produce to the margin. You should do what you can to reduce your feed cost, but this is how it's calculated. Rod?
I may be getting ahead of you, Phil, but when does the insurance portion of it kick in?
You're getting ahead of me, but stick with me here. Okay. Let's take a historical look again now at that margin. Right? What the margin has been. If we go back to 2007 and calculate out what happened with that margin. The margin between what? What's our positive one? You tell me. All milk, U.S. all milk price versus feed cost. Okay? So 2007 to 2014. You can see that the margin was over $14 2007, early 2008, and dropped 2009 to down to $2. You remember 2009, why you had such trouble paying bills? It's because there was $2 left over. That was pretty bad, right? Right now, we're in a period of high margin, but there's been a lot of variability here, okay? So as we talk about this margin level, and we're going to talk about these margin levels, get these facts in your mind. First of all, the average of this period of time was $8.13. So right across here was the average margin. Well, the average had a lot of variability, 2 to 14. But the average is around $8.13 across there if we just do the math, right? So keep that in mind as we look at something, and we'll see that graph again. Now, one of the things to remember is that we're using, not we, the program is to use the U.S. all milk price, right? So, and then it's using feed costs that are Chicago-based feed cost or U.S. feed costs, okay? So there may be some who say, well, how does that really correspond to what my costs are, and how does that correspond to what my income are when I'm in Michigan? Well, the reality is that Michigan tracks very well with the U.S. on that. And so the greenish line, whatever color that is Michigan, and the reddish line is the U.S. And you can see that the U.S. and Michigan track fairly well. That might not be the case if you're elsewhere in the United States, where feed costs may be higher, or milk price may be lower or higher, okay? But right now, we can figure, okay, even as that U.S. all milk price is used, and even in that formula, there's a pretty good tracking between those things and what you have to face. Now, you're protecting a margin on your milk. You can't protect the margin on 100% of the milk you produce. You can protect the margin on anywhere from 20 to 90% of the milk you produce in 5% increments. So you're going to choose, one of the things that you'll have to choose if you choose to participate in this program is you have to choose how much of your production you plan to protect the margin on. Anywhere from 20% to 90% in 5% increments. And the highest is the highest level of your production in year 2011, 12, or 13. So, yeah, this works there too. How about that? I put some numbers on the board, right? Just to make it real to me. I took a number of cows, I took a level of production per cow of 2011, and I shipped 6,530,000 pounds of milk in 2011. 2012, I cut back on cows, I culled some cows, production dropped because I cut some feed out, and I was down to 500,000 pounds of milk. 2013, I regained most of that. What years, how much production is going to be my base history that they're going to base it on? 2011, okay? So no matter what you do in 2014, it's the year, it's one of these 3 years for you that will be your base. Okay? 2014 will be based on one of these 3 years. But what if you added on? What if you doubled the herd size in 2014? That's your base. Okay? So understand that the amount of milk that you're protecting the margin on goes back to those 3 years and the highest production that you shipped in those 3 years.
How about for 2015 or 16 or 17?
Okay? So Abby asked the question, how about 2015, 16, 17, or 18? Right? Goes back to that base and the annual production increase added onto that. So you could double the herd tomorrow. In 2015, 16, 17, it's the highest from 2011, 12, or 13, plus that annual increase. The annual increase after you sign up. Because if you don't choose to sign up until 2018, it just goes back to that highest base, as we understand it.
What? If you don't sign up until 2018, then does it go 14, or 15, 16, 17,
No.
or it goes back to 11?
11, 12, or 13. It is 11, 12, or 13 for the life of this program through 2008. Stan?
Can I ask the question before they all run home and get out the calculator? Are co-ops doing anything to provide information back to the producers?
I know we are sending out a form to all members that has those three numbers on there.
Okay, great. That's very helpful because in one of the things that as I look at this program, I see something. I see that this is not easy for you to track. You're not going to do the calculations on feed costs. I know that. So that margin is not something that you're going to calculate and track every month. That's a problem because you don't know what that margin is going to be on a monthly basis. You're going to have to rely on somebody's posting of that information because you're not going to track it yourself.
Still another problem I think that might be there too, just do the reverse, like California's got a drought now.
Yes.
If they're taking a national average on cost, feed costs, and yours is extremely high because of a drought, like if it happened in Michigan, it's not going to cover you either.
Well, that's right, because that's a localized drought. So localized things that don't affect those national prices definitely will be a problem as well too. Yep. All right. There's an FSA form. We have those forms here. We'll pass those out a little bit. That establishes on which your production history is established. Now, there's no milk production limits on this. So even as we talked about the fact that you're limited by those 3 years, and if you double your herd size tomorrow, there's a de facto limit. But it's not a limit that affected you if you doubled your herd size in 2013, right? To a large size farm. And each year you have the opportunity to choose that coverage level. That's a choice that you can make every year. So if you make a choice in this year, for 2014-15, you can make a different choice for 2016. You can make a different choice for 2017, you can make a different choice for 2018, depending on a number of factors. It may depend on what the market looks like. It may depend on what in the world seems like it may be going to happen in dairy. It may depend on your situation. For instance, if you're highly leveraged in a couple of years, you may say, I need to do something different. I need to protect more. Okay? So that choice is yours every year, as well as the margin that you protect is yours. That choice is yours every year.
So
Yeah.
when can you change your base? At 2018, will they re-average the next?
There's no change in that base, Abby.
Well, like for the next farm bill.
Oh, well, that's the next farm bill.
So we could be stuck with this base for
Who knows?
ever.
If you want to predict politics, Tim, did you have a comment on that?
5 years. You're looking at it's a 5-year program.
Yeah, it is a 5-year program. And we don't know what will happen at the end of 5 years. Julie?
So, if I'm understanding this right, we have 11, 12, and 13. It's not the average, it's the highest.
It's the
of
highest
whichever one
of those 3 years. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not an average.
It's not an average.
Right. All right, so now let's look at this table. This is the margin coverage levels. The bottom margin is a $4 margin. Okay? A $4 margin between milk price and feed cost. The highest margin is $8. By the way, what did we say the average margin was from 2007 to 2014? $8. $8.13 for those who remember. Right? What did we say the current margin is running around?
13, 14,
$12, $13, $14, okay? Right? It was $12.07 for May, June. It was $13.87 for February, March, April. Get my months right. Okay? Now, there's three, so that's the coverage level in this column. Then there's three columns here. The premium that you'd have to pay for that coverage level, and there's three premium columns. Let's start with this one. The premium you pay for the first 4 million pounds that you protect. That farm there, we produced over 4 million pounds a year. If we protect, I did the math, if we protect 60% of that figure, 2011, we've got less than 4 million pounds, 3,900,000 something, right? So the premium for protecting less than 4 million pounds is in this column, except that in this coming year, we have a discount. This is that, come in, buy one, get one free, or something like that sale. It's a 25% off on the premium for the first year, right? So the premium for the first year, if you would look at the center column, for less, the first 4 million pounds is less. Now, there's no premium at the $4 margin. That's a freebie. The government says you can sign up for that, get that level of protection free if you sign up. You only get it if you sign up. And there is a $100 administrative fee for signing up. But once you signed up, it's free, but it's $100, okay? Yeah. So once you sign up, and you don't do anything else, you get a $4 coverage level protected. Right? Now, let's just make sure we understand here. This is 0.75 cents per hundredweight for a $4 and 50 cent coverage or margin that we'd be protecting. Right? The premium would be 0.75 cents per hundredweight. The premium over here would be 1.875 cents per hundredweight on a $5 margin. Do you understand what we're doing here? Okay. 2016, it goes back up to this level here, which would be a penny on 450, which would be 2.5 cents on $5. If you look down across that level, you see that it's 2.5 cents, it's 4 cents, it's 5.5 cents, it's 9 cents, it's 21.7 cents. There is a break at 650. Keep that in mind. Okay? The other thing I want to point out to you is that for the coverage over 4 million pounds, let's say we elected to protect 90% of 6.5 million pounds, we would pay two premiums that would be combined. We'd pay a premium based on the 4 million pounds, the first 4 million pounds. We'd pay a different premium based on anything over 4 million pounds. So let's go back to 450. That's 2 cents on 450. It's 4 cents on $5. Get down here at $6, it's 15.5 cents. Get down to $8, it'd be $1.36 per hundredweight on an $8 margin for production beyond 4 million pounds. Rod.
Just to be really clear on this, because 6 million pounds, we would pay on 2 million extra.
That's right. You'd pay one premium on the first 4 million pounds. You'd pay a different premium on 5 million, 6 million pounds, on that 2 million pounds.
Say if we want to be at $6 level, it's not 15.5 cents on 6 million pounds.
No.
15.5 on 2 million.
That's correct. And we'll go through that example. Jeremy.
What if you protected 60% of the 6 million?
Then you would pay only, right? 60% of the 6.5 million is less than 4 million pounds, and you would pay only a premium based on actually this column right here. So if we protected a $5 level, we'd pay 1.875 cents.
Okay. So it's only on the pounds protected.
That's right.
Okay.
Right? And Jeremy, I really believe that's an important point to look at. They're making a distinction between the first 4 million and after that. I think you're wise to keep in mind there's a different premium level. For instance, if we just go to 2016, you can see that there's about double the premium if you go from the first 4 million to this next 4 million. Just over double the premium when you go from the first 4 million over that. Almost triple now at $6, from 5.5 cents to 15.5 cents. Almost 4 times, no, that's 3 times, triple again at $6.50. And then it goes up increasingly at four times the amount. The premium is higher for anything over 4 million pounds. Understand that?
And there's no discount?
Oh, that's a good point. No, there's no discount for 2015 for over 4 million pounds. And the discount, by the way, does not cover $8 margin even under 4 million pounds in this coming year.
Is there the same sign-up cost across the board?
Yes, $100 per year. That's right. So that's a good point, Katie. It doesn't matter if you protect 20% or 90%. It doesn't matter if you have 10 cows or 10,000 cows. It's a $100 administrative fee. Goes straight to Tim's pocket, and he runs with it.
That doesn't matter whether or not you end up with two different premiums either.
No. It's standard $100 premium. Okay. So here's an example. 2 million pounds of actual milk production history. They choose to cover 90%. 90% 2 million pounds, my guess is that's about 1.8 million pound, right? Okay, less than 4 million. Right? So they're going to cover it at the 650 coverage level in 2015. Let's just back up and you tell me. It was, I didn't check the math and see if it did it with discount or not. But let's say it was 650 level, so that'd be 4.125 cents, right? Per hundredweight.
650 is
No,
Oh.
675.
All right, so you can see better than I can. It's 675. Thank you. I have trouble following across there. It's 6.75 cents per hundredweight on how much milk? 1.8 million pounds. Right? All right. So the $100 administrative fee. There's 0.9 times the actual production. So the actual production at 2 million pounds is 20,000 hundredweight times the percentage, 0.9, right? Times that premium, and here's what would be paid in fees and premiums. $100 plus $1,215 is $1,315 in fees and premiums to be paid to FSA to participate in the program and to cover 90% of that milk at a margin of $6.50. Do you understand where we came up with that? Okay.
And that is for 1 year?
That is for 1 year. Is it one payment for the remaining months of, no, 14 is prorated, and then that would be the payment for 15.
Okay, wait a minute. So is that a yearly payment? Is that like
That'd be a year.
monthly
That'd be a
payment?
yearly payment.
And is it going to work like crop insurance, that if there is a payout, then they take it out of your payout?
No,
Okay.
no. You would pay that premium before they issue a payout.
So how often do you pay that? Is that in here?
That's in the details. Let's see. You have to pay the administrative fee at sign up, Tim, and then you have 4 months to pay the.
You have to have 25% of that $1,300 paid by February 1st, and the balance has to be paid by June 1st.
Sure.
I think the milk companies are talking about working with us in terms of assignments rate to us. And if there is a dairy fee that's earned, or a milk, an MPP payment that's earned, as long as you're current, let's say there's one that's earned for the January, February couplet, which will be paid in April, as long as 25% is paid, we'll take that as an assignment to offset for the balance. But you have to be current to the 25% by February 1st.
Right.
And then how often do they pay it out? Because you said January, February would be paid in April?
Well, you understand that it takes a month or so for all these prices and stuff to be calculated, so we won't even have the prices for the feed cost to average or the milk price till probably the end of the month after
That's right.
the couplet ends, and then we'll pay within 2 to 3 weeks after that, as soon as we have it.
Okay.
So what is anticipated is that if there is a payout for January, February, that payment will probably not
In
show
April.
up at your mailbox until the end of March,
April.
April, actually April, the 1st of April, the end of April.
First of April, I hope.
Well,
We'll know better.
I wouldn't bank on it the 1st of April because they won't know the end pricing until the end of February.
right,
I,
and they're gonna take 4 months then, or 4 weeks then to calculate,
there's time it takes. Okay.
so don't anticipate if you get anything for 2 months.
Let's go through another example. Now, here's an operation with 10 million pounds actual production history. Oh, 10 million, that's a lot more than 4 million, right? I can do the simple math on that. They choose to protect 50%. 50% of 10 million is how much? 5 million, okay. Now, we know we're going to have we're going to have 2 premiums. We're going to have a premium for less than 4 million, and we're going to have a premium for greater than 4 million pounds, okay? And they're going to protect a margin of $5 per hundredweight for 2015. So we have 50,000 hundredweights, $100 administrative fee. So here's the first margin is 1.875 cents per hundredweight on the first 40,000 hundredweights, or 4 million pounds. And the second premium is 4 cents per hundredweight on the next million pounds, or 10,000 hundredweight. Okay? So it's 100 plus that premium equals $12.50. You say, wait a $12.50? That smaller farm just paid more. Well, let's look back at that. Come on, folks, what's going on here? $13.15. Are these big guys getting a discount? What's going on here? Why are they paying less than that small guy?
50% of their margin.
They're only choosing to cover a smaller portion of their production. Okay? So, again, the choice of the margin level that you protect is yours. The choice of protection level that you protect is yours.
Is the fiscal year?
These are calendar years.
Calendar years on the program?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we were just talking about this. The time of registration, coverage, election, operations, pay the full premium plus 100, or the $100 administrative fee plus 25%, and balance due no later than June 1st. Tim was exactly right, of course. And then for 2014 only, premiums are due at registration. Now, this is 2014. So is the program in effect? Actually, sign-up started yesterday. Right? Was there a big line? No, it wasn't a big line. Sign-up started yesterday and continues until November 28th. Right? Now, what do we know? We know that September, October prices are yet to be determined, right? That margin is yet to be determined. You can wait until after that margin is determined to figure out whether you're going to sign up for that or not. Right? So even though we're in the program now and you could sign up today, it makes a lot of sense to say, well, let's at least wait and see what happens in 2014 till near the end of the sign-up period. I wouldn't wait till the last day of the sign-up period. Tim would probably strangle me if I said that. But near the end of the sign-up period, so I know what's going on more. I know what the markets are forecasting more, because that's 2 months down the line. And I've got a better picture, at least, of what's happening. Rod, you had a question.
When will the sign-up for 2015 start?
That sign-up period is the same sign-up period for 2015.
Oh,
So you're actually sign up before November 28th, you're actually signing for 2015.
14, 15. Okay?
So
14 is at a prorated cost.
so they'll need 200.
no,
No, it's just $100.
only the
Well, I
premiums
thought
I
it
do.
was
Oh, it is. Oh,
One for year.
it's 200.
It
Yeah.
is $200?
Yeah.
I feel you're wrong.
Yep. $100 for 14.
sounds more like the government.
Okay.
It's only the premiums are due at registration.
But remember, if the prices had been horrible this year, it would be a great deal.
Yes. Right.
It's just that the prices are good this year, that there's not a lot of reason to sign.
All right. Let's look at what historic. Yes, Jeremy.
You can, the level of protection, can you change that annually?
Yes,
You can change the level and the percentage.
that's correct. Annually. That's a decision you make annually.
So with 14 and 15, them can be different numbers, because them are 2 annual contracts.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
But you have to do both before November 28th?
That's correct. Right.
Is that going to be the deadline every year,
No.
November 28th?
No, the deadline every year, I think it's in this slides. It actually is sooner in the year. So you won't have that option of waiting this long in the year. All right. Let's look at, again, here's that historical margin, right? Here's a production level, here's a $4 margin right here. So you can see that in 2009, we dropped below $4 margin, or the margin was less than $4, okay? In 2012, the margin was less than $4. So you can see there's the times when a $4 margin protection would have paid if we had this program, right? That's just historical. That's looking back and saying, well, what would have happened, right? So that's at that level. Here's at $6 level, $6.50, $6, there it is. So at $6 level, again, it's the same periods, but you can see there's more months when that kind of margin protection would have paid you a difference. Okay? So obviously, at $8 margin level, you could just draw a line across there, and then you have some there, maybe there, it depends on 2-month couplets, and certainly there, back in here in 06 as well. Right? So you can see that the difference that happens in the margin that you select affects how often it's going to trigger. Here's another way to look at it. 2013 prices. These are the 2-month average for the margin. If we protected $4, there'd be no payment. Protected $4 for March, April, no payment, and down to the line. If we were protecting $6.50, there'd be a payment of 49 cents, a payment of 88 cents, a payment of 94 cents, a payment of 73 cents. Okay, so you can see different margin protection, which has different premium cost, also triggers at different times and pays back at different times. But what is the point of this program? Is this to ensure you that you get change in your pocket to jingle around? No. This is really catastrophic insurance for you, to protect you from a severe downturn in prices or upturn in costs. Mike?
So if you chose to use this program, can you still go to your co-op and market your milk at
Yes.
10% or whatever?
Yeah, I'll get to that later, but yes is the answer. Now, it might be helpful to look at it this way. Are premiums a good deal? Well, it depends, right? It depends on some things. If we expect margins to be much below historical average, then the premiums are cheap. Right? If we expect margins to be near historical average, what's historical average, by the way? 813, right? Then the margins depends on your options and risk attitudes. It depends on how much you're willing to risk on this, because you have to pay something. Right? Now, at $4 margin, there's no cost other than a $100 administrative fee. But if margins are much above historical average, then maybe you say, that's just too expensive. Right? That's a choice you can make every year. And that's the good thing about this, is because we'll have a better idea what 2017 looks like closer to 2017. We're not signed up for 5 years. You've got opportunity to change your mind, to do different things. But are the premiums a good deal? It depends. Chris is going to show you a decision-making tool that actually uses the premiums and a price forecast to say what happens. What's the cost benefit, if you will? What's the balance of those things? A couple other MPP issues. None of you told me that you participated in the LGM dairy. Right? If you did that, you couldn't do this. If you do this, you can't do that. Right? By the way, one of the things about LGM dairy is you can protect a margin that's higher than $8. There's other downsides of that program, but that's one of the upsides of that program. Sign up. Here is the sign up period. Okay, and then here. Who asked the question about sign up? Katie, you asked the question about sign up in subsequent years. Is July 1st through September 30th of the preceding year. So to sign up for 2016, you need to sign up July 1st to September 30th of 2015. To sign up for 2017, you sign up between July 1st and September 30th of 2016. Okay, that's in at least one of your handouts there. Once you sign up for an MPP, you're committed to at least the $4 premium in future years. How much does the $4 margin cost you? Nothing, right? Yeah, it costs you $100. Whoever said that, yeah. Right. You can select higher levels, but if you don't select anything, the $4 margin is used, and then there's the $100 there. And then this ends. End of the year, 2018. We hope there's something after that, but we don't know.
So what you're saying by that is that, okay, if you just go through the procedure and do the administrative fee, you'll be at the $4 level and you pay the administrative fee every year. But once you've signed up, if you sign up in 2014, you are committed to sign up every year after that?
That's correct.
But if you skip to 2014, maybe skip 2015, then you could sign up in 2017.
That's correct.
but then from there on.
That's right. Through 2018. Yeah. Rod?
If you elected to sign up, say for 6 million pounds the first time and then decided the second year you wanted to just take the 4 million, could you do that?
Well, it's not the 4 million.
Or you're committed to
The percent. The
Yeah,
percent is
you
there.
could change your percentage, but if you said it'd be the margin, it goes back to $4, not 4 million pounds. It's the margin goes back to 4 million,
90% coverage automatically.
90%.
Don't make a coverage level and a coverage percentage election in the following years. You automatically are enrolled at $4, which is zero marginal cost, $100, and 90% coverage.
Right.
Because frankly, if you're at the $4, there's no reason not to take the 90% coverage.
Right.
If anybody can think of a reason to take the not,
That doesn't-
then please let me know.
just because we're, the first year, I signed up for 90% of the 2 million over 4 million. Second year, I decided that really wasn't worth it. Now, can I revert back to the
Absolutely.
Yes,
4 million
yes,
at 90%?
yes. Katie?
If you sign up this year or next year for 2014, 2015, and then you skip 16 because the market looks good and you don't feel like paying the government $100 for nothing.
No, you'll be paying the
Can you do
$100.
that, or you have to pay?
You'll be paying the $100 in 16, and you'll be enrolled at 90% production at $4 margin.
So you can't just choose to skip a year?
You can't get out of the program once you get into the program.
You're stuck till
And I like
2018.
insurance.
Jeremy.
For the rest of 14, we got fairly decent looking margins. I'd say they're really good.
That's correct.
So if you weren't to sign up for 14,
All right, let's just explore this. Jeremy's saying the rest of 14 looks like pretty good margins. Is there any possibility that we're going to get any kind of payback for 2014?
Probably not.
It would be catastrophic if there was. So you're right. So there's no possibility, virtually, that we will get a payback in 2014. Go ahead.
so if I don't sign up for 14, I don't spend the $100 for 14, I start it in 15.
Right.
What I would be losing is the increase based on production.
That starts in 15.
Oh, so
The
we're good.
production increase starts in 15.
So we
But even if he didn't sign up in 14,
Doesn't matter.
There's no production increase for 14.
I understand it. But if the first year he signs up for is 15, he'll get the production increase.
As long as he signs up by November 28th for 2015, he gets the bump.
Okay. All right.
And it doesn't depend on what you did for 14 because there's no production increase.
Right.
Well, let's take the example of, if I may, of saying that you look at things and you say, I'm not going to sign up for 2015. I'm going to wait till 16. All right. Then you've missed that production increase. But then the question you have to ask is, was I going to insure 90% of my production coverage anyway? Because if you're not going to insure 90%, then the top doesn't really matter all that much. Because you could just increase the amount of coverage that you're going to select. Right? If you were going to sign up for, this is my example, if I was signing up for 60% of 6.5 million, I don't care if I don't get that production increase for 1 year because I'm only at 60% anyway. I could go to 65% if I wanted to.
Suffering in the heat.
Some of you may have this question about new producers. What if somebody starts producing milk in 2014? What are they going to do? All right. New producers and producers with multiple dairies. Because some of you may say, well, I think I'm just going to break off another dairy. Rod says, 6 million pounds. I'm just going to split into 2 dairies and we'll both be less than 4 million pounds. Yes, that's what you do. That's what Rod says, right? So there's rules to govern all that. Right. New operations will be, well, first of all, each dairy operation is treated as a separate program participant, right? But you have to qualify with FSA as a different dairy operation, right? It's not just a different tank on the farm, because we get lots of farms with 2 tanks, okay? It's not just a different tank on the farm. You have to qualify with FSA as a separate operation, which probably involves a separate license, right? In order to be a separate operation. Historically, you have to be a separate operation. This is not something where you can reconstitute a farm so as to profit from the Farm Bill. That is language from the Farm Bill itself. That is forbidden or illegal to do, to reconstitute your farm to gain an advantage, I'll say, okay? If there's a new operation, They can register, they can get a production history that's based on some assumptions. Assumptions on cows, number of cows, average production of cows, and they can get enrolled in the program that way. But I'm not going to go into much of that because I don't see that happening with most of you. All right, downsides of MPP. Cannot lock in margins above $8 during good years. 2014 is a good year. Can't lock in a margin protection that's going to provide you any coverage this year. It's based on national average prices. And so it doesn't reflect local risk in prices. Mike reminded us that earlier. If we have a drought in Michigan, drives up feed prices in Michigan, that does not affect national feed prices. Therefore, it doesn't help you in that case. The feed ration is fixed, and then you can only protect a maximum of 90% of your production history. So, if you decide to participate or not in each year, until you agree to participate, if you participate, you decide the level of coverage, the percent of your production history, and the margin level. Now, I would also suggest, as Mike brought up, that this is a form of protecting you from catastrophic events. It does nothing to even out milk price variation. Right? Does nothing to protect you from that price variation. If you are in the market now and using risk management tools to protect market variation, you can still be in the market to do that. You can't use the LGM program, but you can use the markets to protect yourself from price variation. That is not forbidden. It's not something that can't even go hand in glove. These things can work together. They're separate. They offer separate payments. There's separate issues involved, but there's no reason why you can't think in terms of both, not just one or the other. Okay?
Well,
Yes, Rod.
When it kicks in, say the margin dropped below $4, how many months has it got to do that in a row before you actually get a payment?
It's a 2-month couplet average.
I understand that.
So as soon as that 2-month couplet average drops below $4,
So it's 2 months.
you will get a payment will start processing for you.
Based on the 2 months.
Right. So let's say, for instance,
Retroactive to those 2 months, or does it start when it starts?
well, if you signed up in this period now for 2014, and for some reason, in October the bottom fell out of everything, and there was a margin for the average margin for September, October of 2014 was less than $4. And then and we'll say for November, December as well, is less than $4. Then in probably sometime in January, you would get a payment for September, October. Right? You would get a payment for in December. In December, you would get a payment for September, October. If you got it in December, in February, you'd get a payment for November, December.
What if it bounces around? September and October is low. I qualify for a payment. November, December are above. I don't qualify.
You don't get a payment. Each payment is separate.
But do I still get paid for September? And
Sure. As long as the 2-month couplet, the margin was below the margin that you protected.
What we're gonna do, Rod, is we're gonna take 1/6 of your production times that price. Each 2-month couplet is 1/6 of the year. And we're gonna take 1/6 of the covered production times by whatever the margin payment is, and that's what we're gonna get. We can't offset the next month and say it was $5, and so $5 offsets $3 on average. So,
All right, just some conclusions. It's a national safety net for catastrophic risk protection. The enrollment period is open now through November the 28th. Don't miss that date if you intend to sign up in this period of time for 2014 or 2015. And that Chris is going to show you an online tool at this address, which is in the fact sheet. Okay, it's a valuable web address to have. Any other questions that you have? Bob?
The LGM you're talking about.
LGM was a livestock gross margin program. We're not prepared, I'm not prepared to talk about that today. Chris may talk to you afterwards about that if you'd like. It's a program that is on again, off again, depending on the availability of subsidies for the premium. And so it's something that you had to be on the date, and if there was premiums available, you could sign in for it. Economist from Michigan State University, and he's staying on top of this farm bill like it's nobody's business. Anybody knows it, he knows it.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Phil. All right. Yeah, it's nice to be here this morning. Pretty day. Saw lots of deer on the way up here, and none of them ran in front of me. So that was a good deal. Well, they were thinking about it, several of them, but they didn't do it. So it's good to be here. Now I want to talk just a little bit about the decision tool and show you how it works. And this is an online resource that we've been working on. And really, so this is, and you guys probably didn't pay attention to this, but when the Farm Bill was passed, there was a set of money for developing online decision tools. So not just for dairy, but if you, and actually all of you ladies and gentlemen that have dairy farms probably have crop enterprises too, right? And so you're going to have decisions to make. Not right now, it won't be until January probably, but you're going to have decisions to make on the crop side for the programs as far as whether you want to do PLC, price loss coverage, or ARC with the revenue coverage. And so there's a whole separate decision tool for that, and there's even one for specialty crops. Well, anyway, a group of dairy economists, so Mark Stevenson from Wisconsin, Andy Novakovich from Cornell, and Maren Bozic from Minnesota, John Newton from Illinois, Cam Thrain from Ohio State, and Chuck Nicholson from Penn State, and I, we got the job of doing the online decision tool for dairy, okay, and which is live as of, actually it was live as of last Friday. I don't know if you maybe didn't notice this, but the Secretary of Ag announced this dairy margin protection program on Thursday, kind of made a big deal out of it. So now we have an online decision tool, and I want to go through it a little bit. All right, so the purpose here is to talk a little bit about the resources that have been developed by the Dairy Markets and Policy Group. That's what we call ourselves there. And the main website is at the University of Wisconsin. I walk through the Margin Protection Program decision tool. And there's lots of other, this is hopefully one of the resources that you'll use when you're making decisions about this program and about risk management in general. But there's other resources also. You know, Farm Service Agency has resources available. And actually on the FSA website, it links back to our tool also. You know, the co-ops, national milk producers, and others have information available that you can use. Other university, I know Scott Brown at the University of Missouri has a little bit different decision tool, operates different than ours. So you might, you know, I suggest that you take the information from this, but you also look elsewhere to help make these decisions. And we have already said this a couple times, but we have the dairymarkets.org. Is the website that Mark Stevenson actually is in charge of there at the University of Wisconsin. And he does a really nice job. And if you go to dairymarkets.org, and if you don't even put the MPP in, you'll see that one of the sidebars is Margin Protection Program. And you click on that, and that gets you into information that includes this decision software, but also presentations, fact sheets, and other written information, and videos. So if, you know, it's the beginning of September. There's no reason to make a decision right now, except maybe to make Tim's life easier so that everybody isn't coming in the last week of November, right? But it's rational to gather more information before you sign up here, okay? It's rational to see what markets are doing before you sign up. And so, you know, we understand that this is early in the process, but we wanted to have these meetings to get the information out there. Also, we wanted to beat corn silage. Which fortunately, maybe for us on these meetings, Mother Nature cooperated a little bit by delaying things maybe this year a little bit. So that's nice, because we figured once people get into corn silage, it's going to get harder to get them to a meeting. So take this information, you know, take it home, read it, go through it, go online, play with this tool, and then, you know, if you have more questions, I'm available, Phil's available, Stan, you know, Tim is available, I'm sure. That there's going to be lots of, I'm sure, specific details that you're going to have to deal with as far as what's a separate operation, and hey, we started a new one here, what do we have to do that? By the way, if you if you expand by starting a separate operation, that would be a new operation for purposes of this, depending on affiliation rules and some things like that. And that might be something that might be relevant to you. But that would be details that you need to talk to FSA about. All right, so really, to get started with this decision tool, you really only need to know your production history. Okay, so it's pretty simple. If you're a member of a co-op, they have your production history probably. I don't know, for example, for Michigan Milk, Sheila, were you guys making it available online to them, mailing it out to them?
Mailing it to them hopefully next week.
So you're going to get it in the mail, and it'll say, here's your 2011, 12, 13, and this is your production history type of thing? Okay.
Outline your highest production.
Okay, and it's not a rolling 12-month average over that period or anything. It's annual. It's a 2011 annual, 2012 annual, 2013 annual. Which one is the highest? Now, if you don't have if you started milking after that, so you didn't have a completed 2013, then you're considered a new operation for this, and there's rules about how they determine what your production history is. And I'm not going to go into that, but if it applies to you, be happy to help you with it or talk to FSA, and it's pretty straightforward how you do it. They just have it prorated based on seasonality and a few things like that. So really what we want you to do here is you figure out what your production history is, you evaluate the margin forecast, you select a coverage level and percentage, and then actually when you go to this decision tool, when you've made the decisions, you can there's a button on there for you to click to print out the form, which is a CCC 782 form, which is to select a coverage level. And so you can actually bring that with you, and that will help you remember what you selected and stuff. And this, I have an Android phone, and it works on there, and this is a PC, and it works on there, and I know lots of people. It works on a Mac, so there you go. It's supposed to be simple. All the calculations are not done on your machine. Okay, so it's not dependent on that. And hopefully, if you're in an area where maybe you have satellite internet connection or something, it works well. And if it doesn't, then I'll give you a phone number to call them. No, but no, they've got it pretty efficient. It works pretty well. All right, and when you go in there, there's a place to put farm name, put production history, and then play around with it, look at some things. None of this information is saved, okay? You don't have to worry that we are, when people go in and put it in that we're tracking it, although, frankly, that would be really cool if we did, because it would be fun to look and see what people look at and what they spend their time on and stuff, just out of curiosity. But we don't do any of that, okay? So nothing is saved. You don't have to worry about it being tracked. And and if you have insomnia, at 2 a.m. you're working on this, it'll probably help you fall asleep. So, especially if you're looking at this next year because the margins look good and you're going to think, well, all the money you're going to make, and you don't need to do this. All right, so as Phil said, first register or not. LGM, which was mentioned as livestock gross margin insurance for dairy, that's been around for 6 years in some form. It was limited in 2008. That one hasn't been widely adopted for a whole bunch of reasons, including the fact that there's a limited amount of subsidy for the premium. And frankly, if you choose to be an MPP dairy, you can't do LGM, and that's not a loss for 99% of the people. So I'm not going to spend time on LGM dairy. But I'd be happy to talk about it if somebody wanted to. I mean, right now, if you wanted to protect the $12 margin, you could actually with LGM dairy. Now, whether you'd want to spend what it costs to do that or not is a different question, but you can. So it does offer that advantage, and some people have used it, and there was a lot of people in 2009 that liked it a lot, and they didn't like it so much in the years after that. Okay? So if you sign up, if you register, then think about the contract design, so the margin protection, the coverage percentage. And both of these decisions require an estimate of the margin, which is, I've got IOFC because I'm used to saying income over feed cost, which by that I mean the margin, or in this case what's called the actual dairy production margin. So there's annual decisions as to the minimum amount of margin protected, the percent of your actual production history that will be insured. So we need to look forward to the 12 months that are encompassed by the contract, which the tool does. Okay, so and what you don't need to know this, but basically what this tool does is every day goes to the futures market and pulls down the milk futures price and the corn and the soybean meal futures price, and from that projects the margin, okay? And there's a lot of statistics and econometrics behind it, and it adjusts for correlation between the milk and the feed prices and things of this nature, and it's pretty cool. So this is what the MPP website looks like, and we'll go to it in a minute. So if you just go to it and you click on this is the home tab, and this is margin protection, then you see you got the decision tool, which you click on to go to the decision tool. It's got an input template if you need to put in your production history. And then there's videos, meeting sites, PowerPoints, printed material, including the actual rules and FSA fact sheets and things like that. And then a link even to other Farm Bill tools. So we'll do it in a minute and go through an example or two, but this is the default view of the decision tool. So you go in and you can see there's two tabs here. This is for MPP, which is the Margin Protection Program, which we're talking about. If you clicked on LGM, it takes you to a whole separate decision tool. And you know, I'm not here to badmouth LGM, but it's not going to matter. I mean, you're not going to use LGM. In fact, this program is going to be the end of LGM, at least for the time being, would be my prediction. And you can put in your farm name, but you don't have to put in farm name. And this is a drop-down menu to look at the different years that you can look at. And this lets you go back and look historically at what the margins looked like, what they would have looked like, for example, had you signed up for the 2009 calendar year, if this program had existed, which of course it didn't. Okay, and so the sign up would have been as of September 30th of 2008. So it lets you see what the market was forecasting for margins at that time, and then you could click a button and see what the actual margins were. So it lets you go back, and now that's only historical context, but it does let you know, first of all, how much variation it can be. Secondly, how the markets can miss the guess. I mean, when you're looking at the markets, the best information that's available at that time. Okay, and so it lets you see what the potential payouts could have been. So, you know, what we might, I don't know how much, you can look at 2009 if you, out of morbid curiosity. Okay, because y'all lived it, right? And you remember that was a once in a lifetime. Okay, we're not looking at a recession like that again. Okay, now 2012, that could happen again. Okay, so if you want to look at a horrible year, you look at 2009. But for a bad year, I think it's interesting to look at 2012. So you do your coverage year, then you put in your production history. And so you either enter a number right here, or if you click on this question mark, that takes you to a little separate box that says, here's your production. This is what your production history means. Either enter it there or push this button to download a spreadsheet, and then you can enter it in by month, and it will tell you what your production history is. But the easiest thing to do is just to enter your production history. But there is a separate one that takes you to a spreadsheet that if you then enter, you can click back to go, and it will automatically enter it in the tool. Okay. So for example, I don't know if like at Michigan Milk, if you could go on and see your 2011-12 on a spreadsheet, you could cut and paste that into the spreadsheet and it would upload it for you too. So you have that option. Okay, and so this is set up as a forecasting the margin for 2015. And this tells you expected margin and probability below payment. So, and we'll get into this more, but this is the margin level. So 8, 750, 7, 650, down to $4. Okay, so this is, it has to be below 8, obviously, for you to have a payment. And this is a last week's margins, and we'll look at newer ones. But for example, September, October 2014, where the markets were, and this is beginning of last week or the end of the week before, was 1465. Okay, so and these dots mean there's no chance that the market was saying that September, October, or let me rephrase it, there's a less than 1% chance the market was saying that that margin would be below that. And frankly, you know, we're in September already. We're looking at a September Class 3 milk price of 23 something, or is it 24 now? I forget. I looked and I've forgotten it. Mike, you know?
Between 23 and 24.
It's 23.65 or something like that, okay? That's class 3, not all milk, right? All milk is going to be above that. So, and we're looking at corn prices that are $3.65 on the board, and I don't know what basis is. 45 cents, depends on where you live. When we're looking at $3.50 corn and $24 milk, it's just not happening, okay? I mean, you know, frankly, unless the world comes to an end, in which case we got bigger problems than whether you signed up for this. Okay, so so then you get out November, December, and it's saying the same thing. But you get out to January, February, and it's saying, well, there's a 3% chance. So 97% chance that it doesn't. So you're probably not, you know, that's not scaring you either. So you can see that, but as we get further out, there's a bigger chance. So the way to read this is saying that for a year from now, September, October, there's a 10% chance that would trigger at 8. But that's given the current market information and things change, okay? So that's not, all right, so I already told you, do you want to analyze the margin protection program or LGM? The default is forward looking because we can also do backward looking, and we'll do that. Enter your actual production history, and then you can select English or Spanish. Okay? And this is the forecast, the coverage year, and bi-monthly, and the couplets, the bi-monthly calculations. And this is, do you want it a probability table, which is what this is, or do you want it as a graph? And I'll show you both. It's the same information, it's just presented a different way. And then each one of these in the probability table is the probability that the markets are saying that for those months, that margin will fall below this expected one on the column on the left-hand side. Okay? And if you were to take that same thing and click on the forecast graph, this is what you get. This view right here. Okay? So here's the margins, dollars per hundredweight, and the blue area is what you can protect, okay, from 4 to 8. These are the months going forward on the horizontal axis. The dark line, the black line in the middle, is where the futures market is at that current. And so if you look today and then you look tomorrow, this can move because it's going to be the current futures. Okay, it won't move on the weekend, but during the weekdays it can move. Okay, because it's current futures. So the dark line is where the futures is. And then we have basically what amounts to a confidence interval around that, which is to say there's a 25% chance that it's in the band above the futures and a 25% chance that it's in the band below. And then so there's a 50% chance the market is saying that the margin will be, given the current information, that the margin will be in this green or red area. Okay? Which means that, is it possible it could be here? Yes, and on that probability table you can actually see what the probability is. So, 3%, 1%, 10%, whatever. And also, by the way, I'm going to just, you notice how this band gets wider as you go out? That's because we're less certain as we get further away. And particularly that's true with the milk futures and options. The milk futures and options in the nearby 3 or 4 months are pretty darn good predictors. And okay, you get 6 months out. You get beyond 6 months out, and what you'll see with the milk futures and options is it just reverts to the mean, what economists would call it. And so if you go look now, you're going to see that you basically get out here past February, and you're looking at 12 or 18 months of it just kind of sitting there at $18. And because the market, well, it doesn't know. It's not a bad guess, but it's just guessing kind of an average. So this band widening out is reflecting, actually, the level amount of confidence we have as we get out there and there's more time uncertainty. All right, so once we've looked at the margins, so we looked at this forecast margin and we played our games and looked at the different ways and thought about what we want, then we can go to select coverage, this tab here on the top of the tool. And if you select coverage, it takes your information. So this production history that's in here is 1,200,000, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because we have a lot of imagination when we made this up. So this would be looking back to 2013 historic. Okay, so this has already happened. So if we had protected 90% of our coverage level, well, hold on. I think I have some things that come up. All right, so the coverage level, $8 to $4.50 increments. This is going to be the total amount of cost given this coverage level and this coverage percentage. So for example, this herd protecting 90% of that 1.2 million pounds at $8 for 2013 would have cost them $5,378, and that includes the $100 fee on there, okay? And an expected payment of where the markets were, okay, as of 9/28/2012, where the markets were of 28,000, and so you net that out, 28,743 minus 5378, expected net returns at the sign-up time of $23,365. Okay, so there's your estimated payments that you would get. The drop-down menu goes from 90 to 25 for your coverage percentage. There's your net estimated. Okay, and this is 2012 estimates because for 2013 and 2012 is history. And if we click this box here that says include actual net revenue, if it's a time period that already happened, then it shows you what happened. Okay, so this is where the market was, and then here's the actual net revenue was smaller. So the market thought the margins were going to be worse than they actually were. And so anytime you're doing historic, you can look at what the market thought and what it actually turned out to be. Okay? So I'm going to go. So if this is that, so I'm online now here. Hopefully everything works. And this is the decision tool. And I'm sorry, but when I hook it up to this monitor or this projector here, it makes my screen a little different. So I'm sorry that I can't show you the whole thing, but we'll kind of just move around here. All right, so if we were, for example, to look at, so we're in the forecast margin part of it. And I'm just going to go back here to 2000. So there's your drop down. There's your options. You can go all the way back to 2008. Okay, and so 2015 is the furthest out we can go. And that's the one that you're going to be making the decision for the last 4 months of 2014 and all of 2015. But we can go back to 2009. And I told you not to do this, but I just want to show you. You can do whatever you want, by the way. So if we said probability table, just to show you what it looks like. Now this was as of September 30th, 2008. So that was when things started to look bad in the housing market, if you recall, and then it got real bad going into the fall. But I don't know. I'm trying to remember if September 30th, if it was clear exactly how bad it was going to be. I'm guessing no. Okay? But what it's saying is, so if we had been doing that and considering the 2009 one, then, you know, look, it's saying 67% below $8. So it was projecting some bad margins. 70%, you know, below for May, June, and even down here it was saying 3% below 4, 7% below 4. But it was still, we're not looking at numbers like, remember the one we were looking at for 2015 was a lot of dots, which meant less than 1% that would happen. So it was predicting a bad one. And this is the forecast graph. Again, this top of this blue area here is $8, so this is $8 going through here. The futures was saying that, you know, well, if the trigger level is above that dark black line, then that's a 50%, right? So, you know, it was predicting that margins would get bad and then maybe recover a bit towards the end of 2009. Because this is also the point where it wasn't clear that the whole world economy was going to meet a recession. And by the way, world economy probably has a bigger effect on our dairy margins right now. Okay, because now we're exporting 16%, you know, and we're more dependent on certain parts of the world than others. But world economy probably has a bigger effect now, so that it wasn't necessarily take a recession in this country for us to have some bad or worse milk prices. Southeast Asia would do it.
Can you show on the chart what when it did trigger, the months that it did trigger in 2009? At the different levels?
Sure. We can look at the expected payments anyway. So here's the, let's see. So let's go. Wait, hold on. Let me go back here. Okay, so let me just do this first. Okay, so there was where the market was as of September 30th, 2008. If we click include actual margins, that's what the margin actually did. Okay, so it hit about $2. So again, but remember, we're dealing with these markets. There's actually a lot of information, a lot of liquidity, especially on the corn and soybean futures and options, but it's only what is current information, right? That's the best you can do. And by the way, anytime you're making decisions on risk management, the best you can do is to take the current level of information you have and make the best decision you can. That's the way it works, unless you're Mike Fagan, in which case you have other resources that you can.
You know what Mark Stevenson told me one day? Don't ever think you'll outsmart the markets.
Well, I'd agree with. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Did you listen?
Yep.
Okay.
One thing I know Mark about. He used to be a dairy agent.
Yeah, I remember. I know. Mark's from St. John's, Michigan, and yeah, it used to be in the thumb, right? All right. So anyway, let's go. And then if we were to go to select coverage, we could look at. Again, this is as of September 30th, 2008 for 2009. Here's the. If we're doing this producer here with a 1.2 million pounds of production history, then these numbers are always going to look the same right here at 90% coverage. But look, if we drop down and we go 55% coverage, you see it changes to reflect the fact that we're covering less hundredweight at these different levels. Okay, and you get down here to 4, and it's always going to be $100 because that's what it costs every time. So, but let's go back to 90. So here were the expected net returns. If you bought the $8 one, you were expected to pay $5,400 and get roughly 13,000 back for $7,000 in net returns, which is not bad. But if we go include actual, and then we get over so we can see it, here's what the actual net revenue was. So instead of the expected 12.7, it's 32.9, because it was a much worse year than the market expected. But let's get away from that and go to where we are now, because okay, so if we're at 2015 right now, well, we can 2014. No, you know what? Let's go 2015, because that includes the 2014 ones that are left anyway. Okay, so 2014 right now. Here's your $8 band. This is $12. This is 13. If you see the milk price is predicted to peak here in September, October, which is actually a normal pattern for milk price to peak. I'm going to talk just briefly about some of the factors that are affecting the milk price right now at the end here. But the market right now is saying that, you know, they're not predicting any possibility really of it getting to the lower levels of margins. Now, they can be wrong. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that you don't want to sign up for this. Because really, especially if you're treating it like catastrophic coverage, okay? I don't know what you can get for $100, but it's not a lot most places. So, you know, there's that. But we're not looking, presumably, at another 2009. Still, the market is saying, well, we're looking at being about here at $11. That's with current information. Right now, butter prices are high, cheese prices are high. Normally, we would expect them to decline coming up. I think the decline might be bigger than the normal decline coming up here, just because of the levels we're at and because the market is really worried about making enough butter to get the. So we already looked at this. It's saying, saying that for July, August, there's a 12% chance it could be below 8, 17%. 16%, so that's not zero. 22% when we get out there towards the end of next year. And really, that's mostly because of a decline in milk price, because feed prices are supposed to be fairly constant, at least that's where the futures market is. But you know what? What does it take for feed prices to change? Okay? Brazil's got their crop coming up. Brazil is big enough now that something happens with the soybean crop in Brazil that's going to affect soybean prices here, which are not only going to affect your soybean price, but they're going to affect the corn acres planted next spring, which will affect the corn price, right? You know, the forage prices out west are not going down anytime soon. So there is, Phil pointed it out that this margin is very correlated with the average Michigan margin. That doesn't mean it is correlated with your margin, right? Because you have a different, you're growing forages or you've contracted ahead on this or prepaid this. But it does a much better job than it does for those guys in California, several of whom are pretty unhappy about some aspects of this program. But it's better for them, by the way, than the milk income loss contract program certainly was for those guys. But if we go select coverage now, then here's where we're at. And if it's in, if it's in parentheses, okay, why, don't do that. If it's in parentheses, that means it's negative, okay? So what this is saying is at the current time, if you, for this farm, which was 1.2 million pounds of production history at 90%, we're not going to do 90%. Let's do, what do you want to do? What do you want to protect? 65? Okay, 65. 65% of 1.2 million pounds of production history covered. If we're looking at 650. That's just coincidence, by the way, that this is $650. 65% of that 1.234 million pounds with $100 fees and premiums $650, expected payment of $200, so a loss of $447 at the current time. But you also don't buy insurance expecting to collect on it, right? Or wanting to. If the market's right and it's $11 all year next year, that's good news, right? I have a neighbor who likes to, you know how when you buy anything now, they want to sell you an extended coverage on it? Like anything. Like things that cost $3.50. Would you like to buy? Why would I? Anyway, I have a neighbor that buys extended coverage on everything he buys, which some things I think it makes sense for. Like, maybe washers and dryers with all the electronics in them now or something. But he is so happy when something breaks. He always comes over and tells me, well, my computer monitor died and I get a new one because I bought the extended coverage. So anyway, this isn't like that, right? We're not hoping to collect on it. But what this is saying is, if you were to take the $4 right now, since there's only like a less than 1% chance it's triggering, there's essentially no expected payments. And you would lose $91, but you would also get the 0.9% growth in production history if that's important to you, but that's a small amount, but it might be important to you, I don't know. And we can't click on include actual net revenue because this is all future, right? But so you can go in here, you can put in your pounds, you can play with the coverage level, you can play with the with looking at the different coverage levels and the percentage of premiums, and then when you get done, you can print out what you did and take it with you. And I was telling you earlier on this, if you click this, you get this box that tells you what the production history is, and sends you to a spreadsheet if you want to put yours in a spreadsheet. And if you download this spreadsheet, there's another link that will send you right back to this and enter it in the box. But I'm not going to do that. Is there anything you guys would like to see further on this? Rod, is there something we can?
It's stretching up the old argument, but.
Uh-oh.
Don't you think there's a little danger in looking at past history and plugging this into it?
Yeah, I think it would be dangerous for you to say, well, this looks like a 2011, or you know what I mean? Because things change over time. Absolutely. I think that I think what the history does is provide context, and I hope that's how you use it, right? That it just shows you where, in particular, it shows you where the market was at sign-up time and what ended up doing, which shows you the fact that, first of all, the market, and this is no surprise to anybody, isn't always right. So yeah, I think Rod, I think you're right. You got to be careful. You can't say this is 2012 again, or this is 2011 again, or
if there's widespread acceptance of this program, and people are in, even at the $4 level, and if it gets to that level, there's far less incentive for people to cut back on production than there was in 2009.
Yeah, if they're covered.
So that period, in my mind, is likely going to last longer.
Yes.
Take longer for the market.
The economic theory would suggest that you're right about that. And the milk so what Rod is saying is that if we were to have 2009 again, if everybody had a coverage level above that, let's say $6 or even $8, they would not have had the liquidity issues that they had in 2009. And I mean, in 2009, 10% of the dairy herds in California sold out. Okay, and you know, if they had, and that is a potential criticism of this program, is that if it takes away the incentive to cut back in production. But remember, how do we cut back in production in this country? It's not everybody culls 5 cows. It's some people that have a solvency issue sell out, right? So yes, that is a potential problem. You know, if we're looking at a period like a 2009 or 2002, 2003, when we were sitting at support for almost 18 months, it would take a lot of the sting out of that for the people. But you know, first of all, the fact that you got to sign up by the end of September means you're not going to have perfect information about what kind of year it's going to be. Well, you wouldn't have perfect information anyway. But this year you're going to have more information about 2015 than you will have, for example, for 2016, 17, or 18. And that helps alleviate some of that. There is the potential. And that, right, of course, was why they had the stabilization part of it in there, was to give the incentive to cut back. And then but the stabilization part was really unpopular in some places and kind of got bargained away. Would that be fair to say? So, anything that anybody wants to see on this? Otherwise, I'll just we'll keep you guys all day. Just make a few more remarks here. I'm going to skip that. So if you were to click on the LGM one, it would send you to Brian Gould's LGM analyzer. But which I'd be happy to talk with you about. It's not that I don't think LGM is a good program. I actually think that it has a lot of good aspects. I just think they made it too difficult to use, personally. All right, so what's the role of this margin protection program? Well, in bad years, it's cheap. Catastrophic margin protection. And I don't think that this should be a substitute for all of your risk management activities. I think it should be part of the risk management portfolio that you use. Okay? So if you have a risk management program that you're using that you're happy with, I would encourage you to keep using it and add this in. Okay? Other tools can be used, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't use the other ones. And when you're looking at risk management programs, you want to consider your farm financial situation, okay? If you simply can't afford to have margins below 650, that ought to drive part of your decisions here. You ought to go back and look at how your margins are correlated, and we can help you with that if that's something you're interested in doing, okay? If you have a solvency issue because maybe you just did a major expansion, you're going to be more sensitive to low margins than somebody that's got 100% equity. And doesn't owe anything, okay? And that ought to be part of the calculus here when you're making this decision. If we go back, let me just do this quick. All right, just put this. This is the discounted premiums for 2014 and 15. And this isn't how you're going to make this decision, but that's 6 3/4 cents. Okay, that's less than a dime a hundredweight for 650. Now you also have to put that in the context with the market saying that, you know, maybe it's going to be 11. But if you absolutely can't afford to be below 650, have a year like that, then that is going to be part of your decision. All right, and so you also got to look at the current margins and prices, and that's what this tool is designed to do, and hopefully you'll do it. You want to look at the market outlook, and you know, you need to consider what actions you take that help you sleep at night, because that's part of the deal too, right? Okay? You want to feel good about it. If something is stressing you out, especially if this helps with that, then that's going to And here's where, because here's where the margin forecast is right now going out to July. And before we had it, but it was stretched out further. And so this is the same information. It's just that I put it back to 2011 here. So if you go to the dairymarkets.org website, this is what you'll see. And here's $4, here's $8. So this isn't showing the margin protection program one. In fact, what it's showing is the historic middle third. So Phil said correctly that the long-term average has been $8.13 a hundredweight, which is right in the middle of this. And the historic third has been between $7.50 and about $9.25, $9.50. It's kind of where we've been. But you can see that we've spent a lot of time outside that historic third, right? This whole period down there, and then this one, you just see how high it's been. And really, that's part of, here's the futures market. That's as of the close last week. But going out through July of next year, this looks like a pretty good drop-off till you look at this axis over here, and here's $18. Okay? It is, but that, by the way, that is a pretty good drop-off. It's still $5.50. $5.50. So really the futures market is saying we got a lot of milk coming online. Milk per cow is up. We've gotten over all the feed quality issues, I hope, that we had last year. Got rid of last year's feed, got some new feed in, right? Cows probably did better. After that, haven't had much heat in the country. So even the Florida guys are not doing bad for milk. And there's been a lot of strength in the cheddar cheese prices. This is June, July, August of this year. So August has been up. Why? Because they're building stocks for the holidays coming up. And also, they've had to bid these cheese prices. So this is $2.30 a pound, wholesale. That's a good cheese price, right, Mike?
I'm right.
Now that's not a retail. It's $5.65 a pound. So there's still a whole lot of margin in there for the retailers. But why has that cheese price been so solid? Well, one of the reasons is you got to get the milk away from butter. Okay, and this is butter, which hit $2.82 a pound, which, not adjusted for inflation, is the highest cash butter price we've ever had. I think it was $2.81 back in 1998, which would have been higher if we adjusted it for inflation. So the butter prices have been real high. So what do we want to watch? When we're thinking about this, the milk production response, which has been building in some places, the butter and cheese stocks, and then the world prices. This is the value, total value of U.S. dairy exports. This line right here is 700 million. This is a month. So March, April, May, June, we're $600 to $700 million a month. 15 years ago, it would have taken us 2 years to get the value we have in a month now. And we were big net importer actually on dairy. Now we're a big net exporter. So exports have been real solid. You know, this value is down a little bit, but that's actually reflects in part some of the milk needing to stay home to build some stocks. The green area here is Oceania, which is the world price when we're talking about dairy products, because we always do dairy products FOB Oceania. So essentially New Zealand, Australia. The U.S. price, NAS price, is the red bar. And you can see the big drop off here. This is non-fat dry milk powder, skim milk powder. The big drop off, powders have kind of tanked, and we export a lot of powders, and that's part of why you've seen that value decline just a little bit in these previous. Come on. No. That's why you've seen this decline just a little bit. That's mostly powder value. Cheese prices, actually, world cheese prices down, U.S. cheese prices down, but then kind of recovering or flattening out a little bit. And so we would normally expect to be below this line, by the way. You can see most of the time we're below the world prices, and now we're above. Powder prices are going to not be strong in the U.S. They need to, but they've tailed off. Cheese prices were a little high if we want to do much exporting. Although exporting lately, we've been with CWT, right? So we don't have the Dairy Export Incentive Program. We do have cooperatives working together, exporting cheese. And this is the one that stands out. Okay? So we've been going in opposite directions on butter. And the reason is that we have 42% less butter stocks this year than we had last year. And if you are going to be using butter, if you're ConAgra and General Mills and other companies that are going to be making products and selling products for the holidays, we use a whole lot of butter starting at Thanksgiving and through Christmas and New Year's and the Super Bowl, right? So what's going on right here is this is a local issue. Local is the United States, okay, as opposed to the world. And so you look at that butter price and we're way out of whack. And so the question is, what happens when they get enough stocks in that they've got the holiday demand met? Well, it has to go down, okay? Well, first, and by the way, it doesn't take a genius to figure out it has to go down if it's at the all-time high. It's more likely to go down. Not how much, and how far, and how fast. That's the questions. Yeah, Mike's going to tell us. Mike, how much is he going to?
For you, because you're the expert in it.
Uh-huh.
At what point in time do you feel like the pipeline will get full in the exports and can participate the growth that we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years in the future? Based on everything you know today.
Well, normally it would happen in the next month or so that they would have their stocks pretty much set for the holidays. And or even they would have had it done this summer. So we're a little behind. Just like the corn silage is behind, we're a little behind. The question is when it gets full. So, look, the low end of this is a really wide range. Partly because this is in the world prices too. But this is a really wide range. That's from $1.70 to $1.30. Are we going to $1.70 or $1.30? But if we're going to $1.30, that's the half of where we are right now, because the butter prices have trailed off a little bit, but they're still $2.60. And yeah, so right now we shouldn't be exporting much butter is what this says. What this says is that the U.S. demand is saying keep the butter home. That's because what you're partly doing here is bidding it away from exports, right? Which is how the market's supposed to work, right? So this is saying keep the butter at home. We just need Sheila to build some more butter facilities. And actually part of the deal is we've switched all the butter, not all the butter production, but where we produce the butter today? It's California, right? California built that whole system out there on butter and powder. And they've been down. So I don't know, Mike, when it's going to fall. You need to call your contacts and then tell me. And this just says the butter stocks. Look, here's the green line is 2014. Okay, this was the butter stocks last year at this time. And this isn't zero, by the way, either. But it's 42% less. That's a lot less butter. So anyway, my point of that one is we have great margins now. The market is not predicting a catastrophe, but the potential for it, I would say there's more downside potential on the margins, and in particular because of the downside potential on the milk price, than there is upside. So, you start looking that, maybe it doesn't happen in 2015. Maybe the export markets just stay so strong, and that's great. I certainly don't want it to happen, but the whole point of this program is, and by the way, if it's tanking next summer, then everybody will sign up at $8 for 2016, right, Rod? So, I'm sorry.
But your slide shows the fall in the milk price, and it kind of hits that $18 level. But all the slides that show all of our butter and cheese prices, they're at the high. So this is predicting that fall in there on these prices.
Right.
So kind of looking like it's only going to go so far.
Right.
To stop. We're not looking at $9 or $10.
Right. So the red line is cheese. No, I don't think we're looking at 9 or 10. I don't. No, I certainly hope. No, I don't think we're looking at 9 or 10. We have, world economies are still getting stronger. We still have a good export markets. But I think, it's going to go down, but that doesn't take a genius to predict it's going to go down. It's at one of the highest it's been, right? You just look at this.
Like that one right there. To me, that $5 fall doesn't adequate that when you look at the butter stocks. And the butter price hitting $2.40, and then the bottom at Oceana.
No, it would have to do more than $5 to make those in line.
Yeah.
But the Oceana can come up too.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be just downward. But yes, you are right. That's what I would take from that. If this red bar goes back down to here, that's more than $5 on that class 4 price. It absolutely is. We have a couple of, if there's more questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But meanwhile, we're going to hand out a couple things. The first one, and these are examples, because when you go see FSA, they're going to, but I just want to show you what it looked like. And it's two-sided. The first one is the establishing a production history. So it's CCC 781. And when you take that in, that's to establish your production history for the program. And when you do that, that's registering for the program.
Still gonna be required to bring us proof of production.
Yeah, okay, but when you do that and pay your $100. Now, and that was a separate form, that's CCC 782, to elect a coverage level and coverage percentage, right?